Welcome to A Different Corner, a fantasy football podcast. My name's Manish Verma. As always, I'm joined by Dr. Luman Ali. This podcast is all about kind of two dads grumbling their way through game week to game week. Luman, we've had 2 weeks of no grumbles. Has it been 2 weeks? I don't know. How long is an international break?
It's 2 long weeks. Long weeks.
Before we get into our full episode, because FPL is back this weekend, before we get into our full episode, my cousin Jimmy, who's leading the A Different Corner FPL mini league this season by a good, he's doing amazing. He sent me something this morning saying, have you seen this thread on Twitter? Hashtag Barclays men. And I was like, what could this be? And it's basically from back in the day,
Yeah.
Barclays kind of the players of yesteryear who they've gone, they've just been forgotten. And when I read out some of these names, you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, remember him? He did mad for me on fantasy back in the day. So let me just go through. Swansea, Michu. Do you remember Michu?
That
That season
celebration
he
that he
had,
did as well was
that celebration. How good was Michu at Swansea when they were here? Another one. I mean, he looks like an old man even when he played. Tugai. How do you pronounce it? But do you remember this legend at Blackburn Rovers? He was unbelievable. Long hair. He looked just ancient when he played. I'm gonna get another one on here. Who have we got? Wigan. I'm gonna even forget his name now. Wigan had a few. Hugo Rodallega. Do you remember
I do.
Hugo
I do.
Rodallega? Blooming heck.
So
I mean,
it's proper
nostalgia, man.
100%. I think there's a phrase, the streets won't forget and the streets don't forget. Some of these guys from the superstars, like, the guys who used to do it year in, year out, the Henrys, the Van Nistelrooys, and then, the Lampards and the Gerrards, they were the superstars. But then you'd have guys who you could rely on, like Yakubu. Do you remember Yakubu?
Yakubu. Who is that other guy who used to point at the crowd? Benjani.
Yeah.
Do you remember Benjani? He used to point at the crowd when he used to celebrate.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Wheeler Dealer Harry Redknapp liked him as well.
Wheeler Dealer Harry Redknapp liked him. There's a few here. Kanu at Portsmouth as well. He had a season. Emil Heskey at Wigan. Do you remember that?
Wait. Before we talk about Heskey, what do you think about when you think about Kanu? What's the first thing that you think about?
Oh, for me, it's Chelsea.
Yeah, me too. That hat trick against Chelsea.
Hat trick. But the quality of the hat trick was just unreal.
It was nonchalant.
Just to own a game.
Nonchalant.
It was so good. And the thing is, he was one of the very few players, you don't really get it in now, but who was just like all skill. Like, you're like, what trick is he going to do? It's going to come to him. What trick is he going to do?
Yeah.
And that was the kind of player Kanu was. Brilliant.
And look, we could be here forever, right? But I just thought of a name. What did Sylvain Wiltord do for you? Were you a fan?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'd kill for a Sylvain Wiltord now, right? Someone who's going to come off the bench, occasionally start when you need to rest your star man, and just deliver. He was such a good. He was our super. Like, everyone talks about Solskjaer being the super sub, but he was our second striker off the bench. He was really really good. And how can you not? Old Trafford, Sylvain Wiltord.
100%. And obviously it's a nostalgia fest, but one thing I remember from that era was the music. Super Sunday, Maloko, The Time Is Now. Oh my God. Sensational. It just used to get you ready. And you don't expect a song like that to get you, but that one did.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But also, what's interesting is it's an age thing, this is, because people who just came just after us, they feel the same way about Tiny Temper.
That was brilliant. That was good.
Written in the Stars. it doesn't hit for me the same.
No, it doesn't.
But I can. It's this just you just have this affection for this one song because it was the precursor to a Super
Yeah,
Sunday, two
and
games
the
of
last
of
and the
football.
final words of that song, let's make this moment last.
Let's make this moment last. And then the glitter on the screen,
Yeah.
wasn't it? That
And
was very good, very
you
good.
knew we need to
Oh, the
we need
nostalgia.
yeah.
We're here, of course, the FPL fantasy football, George Michael nostalgia, parents trying to fit in tactics, that kind of podcast. That's what we're all about. And because there's been a break, we have got to talk about a game week 4 coming up. But I wanted to use this international break to talk and to just take a bit of a reflection about where we're at, what, and very importantly, what each team, each Premier League team, all 20 of them, what they are. Because I feel like that question informs who you're going to select, right? What is a Chelsea this season? What are Man City? All that. So we're going to go. And you've kindly bunched all 20 teams into groups. Okay, so we've got the top traditional top six. We're going to offend a few Villa fans, I feel like. Then we've got the pretenders. Then we've got your sort of
Mid-table fodder.
10th place mid table, and then we've got the newbies, Leicester, Southampton, Ipswich. We're gonna rattle through each one, and you're gonna tell me what they are 3 games in, and we'll revisit this maybe at Christmas when there's another
Yep.
break, perhaps, and be like, what are they now? Okay, so we're gonna start off with the top 6, and we're gonna go with your team, Lumen, and the question is, what are Liverpool this season?
Uh, More reliable, more solid. There's never been a question about Liverpool going forward, except for the end of last season when we couldn't couldn't score, which was a bloody nightmare to watch. But on the whole, we've always had goals in the team. The question has always been with Jurgen Klopp teams about keeping them out, and it's no coincidence that when we were winning things, leagues, Champions Leagues, that's when we were our most solid. So slots gone back to that. So we're still scoring goals, but we're more solid. And I, for one, am ecstatic. Um, as an Arsenal fan, how are you feeling about them? What do you think about them?
What are Arsenal this season? I think we are attempting to go for this title. We are trying our best to uproot this City dominance. I think we are probably a team who's still going to be second place this season. And what I think Arsenal are in the next few, in terms of FPL, I mean, if we're talking about FPL for Liverpool, we're talking about
Yeah,
Salah.
yep,
We're talking about, it sounds like a Jota and Diaz,
yeah.
or Diaz perhaps. But I think now with your defensive thing, maybe you're going to venture into the defense. I think Arsenal are second place again this season, but I'm very worried about what we are in the next 2 to 3 games. Erdegaard injured. We don't know when he's back. Rice is out of the North London derby. Calafiori has been injured on international duty. And there's always have been a question, and we were, as a club, wondering whether we need a new striker or an additional striker. We didn't do anything there. We've got Raheem Sterling in. Does that improve our chances of winning the title? I don't think it does, and so I think Arsenal this season are second place. What is your take on Arsenal? What are Arsenal? And in terms of FPL, what are
Okay,
Arsenal?
so in terms of FPL, Arsenal are the only team where you would consider for every single position a player to be big for you, whether it's in goal with Raya, defenders who keep clean sheets, uh, Saka, who's going to score goals, or Martinelli as a differential, or Odegaard as differential, and Havertz, who's going to do the business up top. So, they're the only team, top to bottom, for in FPL terms, you're going to consider players from every position. In real life terms, I've said it before and I'll say it again. as Liverpool fans, it gives us immense pleasure that Arsenal fans can finally truly understand what it's like to compete against this City team. So, every
This manager,
e-
it's
e-
this manager, isn't it? That's
exactly,
the thing.
but even every draw, it feels like a defeat.
FPL terms, though, Arsenal, yeah, you've mentioned it, and I think it's a really interesting take. Um, Arsenal are the only team that you could consider players from every position, and that includes, City. You can't do that. Tell me what are Man City and why Man City you can't do that same thing.
Well, Man City are the same team that they've always been, in the sense that, you've got this amazing manager who is the difference when it comes to winning titles, right? So they're my favorites for the title. And that's irrespective of the start they've had to the season. They are my favorites going into every season. But in FPL terms, is pep roulette. Apart from Haaland, you look across that team, you think to yourself, okay, I'll they'll get some clean sheets, right? But then who do you get from the defenders? Maybe you can stick Edison in there, but they're not great with clean sheets. Like even against
Yeah,
Ipswich, they
yeah,
concede
yeah, yeah,
early. Right?
yeah, yeah.
So you wouldn't bank on them for clean sheets. And then you look at players like Rico Lewis, everyone's looking at him as a differential, but then next thing you know it, Kyle Walker will be back. So it's pep roulette, and that's why I'm not high on a lot of their players. Someone like De Bruyne, you've got to take that hit when he has the odd game here and there when he just goes off on one. But is he going to do that regularly? Is he going to play regularly? Is he going to be managed with his minutes? So that's why Man City, I wouldn't go near most of their players, not because they're not any good, but because of pep roulette. Simple as that.
What are Man City FPL wise? I'm completely with you. We're both Haalandless, so we are probably we're gonna have to work that in somewhere and somehow still. Um, Man City FPL wise, it is Haaland, and then yeah, whatever. Maybe until Foden comes back, maybe. And Man City, for me, again, I think, and as an Arsenal fan, it pains me to say this, I think they're champions, but I think they're champions, and this is going to hurt saying it. I think they're champions and unbeaten champions. I think Pep is going for every single record. He got the 100 points. He got the treble. He got the four-peat. Oh, what has he not got? Invincible. Right, I'm going to go for that. So I think that's what he's going for, and it won't surprise me if they do go and do that.
And if they do that, how do you think they'll feel on the other side of town?
I think to answer the question of what are Manchester United, you have to ask yourself the question, what is Eric Ten Hag? What is Eric Ten Hag?
For me, he's another Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. He's a guy who's gets bad results, like really bad results, and the pressure's on him. And then he strings a few results together, and he steadies the ship, and it's this cycle. And I, as a Liverpool fan, love it. Solskjaer would still be in if it wasn't for Cristiano Ronaldo. Cristiano Ronaldo came in and upset their whole dynamic, right? Because it impacted Bruno and him being the focus of the team and the way they played, etc. Otherwise, Solskjaer would still be there because he led them to a second place finish, and they got all delusional, and I was all for it. And I hope the cycle continues. They'll get good results, and then they'll get some bad results, and so on and so forth. So, in terms of FPL, um, I'd consider their defenders, because for a team that bad, they still keep a surprisingly high number of clean sheets, right? It's just when they concede, they concede loads. So, they've got some budget options in defense. So I would consider them. Beyond that, Bruno's too expensive. You get more value from a Jared Bowen, who's £1 million less. Brighton players who are a couple of £1 million less. So that's why I'm not high on Bruno. And then Rasmus Højlund, if he stays fit, you might get lucky and catch him on a good run. But other than that, I don't consider. I don't fancy any Man United players. Um,
I did at the start like Garnacho, um, but and I think he will deliver some points for the price he's at. But yeah, what are Man United is it's just you just don't know. I think, and probably not good enough. I think.
yeah, but the way we're talking, it's like United are in this situation by themselves, but they're not, are they? Because we've also got Chelsea. So,
I mean, this episode should be for me is what are Chelsea? That is probably the biggest anomaly for me because they've got too many
I,
excellent
I,
players to be rubbish, but they've got too many players to field an 11 that works. And do they know what work? I have no idea what Chelsea are.
I do. So if you're into philosophy, Descartes, I think, famously said, "I think, therefore I am." Right? With Todd Bowley, it's "I sign, therefore I am." So that's their whole existence right there. So there you go.
Any FPL assets of Chelsea where you can be like, yeah, I've got an. It's all on. I can
Well,
definitely go with him because they're definitely performing.
every weekend I'm at the blackjack table with my fantasy football team because I've got Mo Salah. Loads of teams have got him. The one guy that I've got that surprisingly, even though he's got a high ownership of 40 odd percent, he's not in the teams of all the other teams in my leagues. Every weekend I'm relying on this guy to pull a rabbit out of the hat, and it's like blackjack, right? It's all on red or black, and it's with Cole Palmer. If Cole Palmer is the difference between my team staying above water or not, because right now my team is horrific at the back and up top. We've gone into it in much detail. So Cole Palmer, but apart from that, Nicholas Jackson, I need to get him in somehow, some way.
I think they're the two forward assets until they work out who works. I really like Noni Madueke, but whether he's consistently a player for Chelsea in that first 11, I don't know. Defensively, I don't think you can really touch Chelsea as cheap as they are. I just don't. They're just conceding, right? They're just conceding.
But they're not the only team in London with question marks, because Spurs, a Spursy again, and I am the biggest. Let me choose my words carefully, right? I am the biggest idiot for not realizing. I mean, I started the season with Mickey van der Ven and Dominic Solanke. I was so smug about Solanke. I got him in when he went to Bournemouth, when he was at Bournemouth. But then he made the transfer to Spurs, and I naively thought, "Oh, this is brilliant! You're getting a striker playing for a premium team." Um, on a ridiculous price. But then I didn't factor a few things in. Firstly, the team he went to was Spurs, and they are not a premium team. We bunched them in as a top six, maybe because they pull in crowds, whatever. But they are not a top six team. They never have been. They never will be. They're a flop team. They're an absolute flop team, right?
I'm
Um,
meant to be saying this as an Arsenal fan.
sorry, they it's fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. So that's me. It's shame on me, and I'm venting, right? So I should have factored in. Not only is he going there, but also when you're a big striker for a smaller team, you get more goals a lot of the times because the team's reliant on you. Everything goes through you. For Spurs, it doesn't happen. So Solanke's burned me with his injuries, and then Van der Ven, he gets an assist and a clean sheet, and then the next thing you know, he's getting an injury. So they've let me down. And then you've got, who can you rely on? Son. That's about it, really. Maybe Pedro
Yeah,
Porro,
he Pedro Porro you like as potentially a big scoring defender,
the new
right?
Kieran Trippier.
Possibly. I mean, someone's got to take that. It can't just be Trent out there on his own, really, can it? And there's got to be others. Otherwise, you're going just budget defenders all across the board, really 4.5 or below. Son is the ultimate feast or famine player for me. Spurs for me are the homeboys. I think they're going to be very strong at home. I don't think they're going to be great away from home. That's what I think. But
It,
the team I feel like we're doing a disservice to in this top six, and that we've put them in the pretenders category, but they're not really. They very much should be there. Are Aston Villa.
yeah,
What are Aston Villa this season, Luman?
Aston Villa are a team that have strengthened because of their Champions League commitments, right? But they're still wholly reliant on Ollie Watkins doing the business. And Ollie Watkins has not been doing the business, much to my chagrin. And, he's been awful. They should have won against Arsenal. Easy, right? I could not believe the sitters he was missing. So beyond what Ollie Watkins, I don't really fancy many of their players like Leon Bailey. Every now and then the defenders may or may not keep clean sheets. You've had Martinez in your team a few times, so
Yeah, I do. He's a good goalkeeper. Penalty saves. He
yeah,
does. Villa when they want when they get those clean sheets, he'll get that. I feel like Villa are that they have like a sandwich. You have either
yeah,
defenders or you have Ollie Watkins. There aren't many midfielders. I say that you mentioned Bailey to me the other day, and this season Rogers,
yeah,
but neither are returning.
yeah.
So I don't know if that's money well spent there. But I say that the defenders aren't returning, no clean sheets yet. However, the next few fixtures do look pretty good. Everton at home, Wolves at home, Ipswich away, Man U at home, Fulham away, Bournemouth at home. That's not a bad selection of fixtures
Yeah,
for
but
Villa.
if Watkins doesn't do it in those games, then he's got no hope. So you've got Villa competing, but then you've got the likes of Brighton, Newcastle, and West Ham. Um, are you in favor of any players from those teams?
Brighton for me are going to be where most of my differentials I feel are going to come from. Brighton for me are going to be where people will want to get clever with certain signings. Mitoma, for example, Minte has been doing it for me, although on the bench. I'm not sure about their defense, but
Joao Pedro?
Brighton's the strikers, the strikers, the strikers. I feel like a popular Google search this week would have been: Did João Pedro play for Brazil? And how far is it from Brazil back to Brighton, the flights, and whether he's going to be tired enough? Maybe this week of all weeks, he did, by the way, go to Brazil, and I don't know if he kicked a ball for the national team this weekend, so may not have had game time, but he did travel and he did go all that way, and he has to come back. I think this week of all weekends is probably a Danny Welbeck week. Away from Brighton, Newcastle, West Ham. They're yeah for me. Newcastle. What are Newcastle?
I'm sorry, but you saying, yeah, what about you dismissing Anthony Gordon and Jared Bowen?
Oh, I had Anthony Gordon, and then I got rid of him probably maybe a bit too hastily because he then did score, but away from home. I'm not seeing the same guy yet. I'm just waiting because Anthony Gordon was when he was home, he's getting you results, getting returns. This season, I'm not sure what Anthony Gordon is gonna be this season.
What about Isaac and Kudus?
Isak, I've got in 1 goal, 1 assist from him, and at the price point, he's probably fair game to stick in still. Kudus, I love, but for some reason, West Ham are a team I just don't know. I don't know. What are West Ham? Big question mark for me. I don't know which way they're going to go. Really good or yeah, average.
It's gonna take time for their manager, and it'll be interesting to see what they do with their new signing, the German Chris Wood,
The
aka
German Chris Wood,
Nicholas Fulkrug. So a big
a big
lump
old
up top. Get a body part on it, and then
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
The German Chris Wood. Let's bunch the next few together. The mid-table teams who we're thinking of mid-table teams are Bournemouth, Brentford, Palace, Fulham, Everton, Wolves, Forest. I mean, I don't know if Everton really have a
Yeah.
shout to be in there, but that mid-table bunch, what are they? Is there anyone who's going to break out of that pack? Is there anyone who's going to sink down and
Yeah.
maybe worry about relegation this season?
Loads of question marks over these teams. I think from these teams, Bournemouth are um, are the most reliable because actually, I'd take a step back. I was going to say their manager, but then they've lost Solanke. So the question mark on them is how are they going to replace the goals? The only player you'd consider for Bournemouth is Semenyo. Um, I actually helped someone with their fantasy team and got them to pick Semenyo. And then people will be like, "Oh, why didn't you?" Because I went for Emil Smith Rowe, and he got me a goal, but Semenyo would have got me more. But Semenyo is the only player I'd consider for Bournemouth. Um, I think Brentford as well are the team from a fantasy perspective, and Buemo and Wissa are like, in the absence of Tony and Tony's replacement, who's, out for the season, and Buemo and Wissa are their main source of goals, and they're pretty handy. They're the players you'd consider. Um, Palace and Wolves are very similar also teams. In fact, a lot of these teams are similar where they've lost big players and you question, can these managers, the Glasners, the Gary O'Neills, can they keep doing it with newer players who aren't familiar with the league? With Palace, I'm going to be seeing how Ismail Assar does and whether he gels. If he gels with Eze and Mateta, then those guys are going to be in. If Michael Elise had not been sold, my team would have had Elise, Eze, and Mateta. Those three were electric going forward last season. Um, so yeah, and from a Fulham perspective, from a Palace perspective, they've got this. Fullback money is who's too expensive. 5 million is too much. But for Fulham, we've got money is against up top. He hasn't done anything so far. Emil Smith Rowe and Pereira will get you points every now and then. Anthony Robinson, again, he's been a good differential for people. Wolves, they've lost too many players, and then you gotta ask, are you gonna get Huang and Cunha in? They're the only two that you'd consider. For Forest, I don't think Chris Wood's going through a good patch. If you got him in, brilliant, but can he do it over a season? Big question mark. Morgan Gibbs White doesn't do it often enough to be considered. A differential I'd throw out there for Forest is Ola Aina, who is a 4.5 million pound defender who's gone down to 4.4 million. So, maybe if you want to squeeze a player in as a differential to make up pad your squad there. And the last one is Everton, who, you know, you wouldn't consider them going forward because they don't score goals, but they did score a couple the last game. But generally, they don't score goals. You'd consider them defensively off the back of second half of last season, where they were the second best defense behind Arsenal. So you have people like me who put someone like Mikalenko only to see his value drop because they've had an absolute mare. Jordan Pickford, the top scoring goalkeeper last season, absolute mare. So there you have it
I think
with
with
those teams.
Everton, with Everton, I didn't realize, but Branthwaite's been out. When he comes back, he's a top defender. Whether he helps secure that defense again,
Yeah.
possibly, I don't know. Everton for me have really could quicksand down, really get sunk in there.
And that just leaves, the bottom teams, Leicester, Southampton, not bottom teams, the newly promoted teams, Leicester, Southampton, Ipswich. How are you feeling about them? Any players at all that catch your eye?
No, I mean, you told me the other day Jamie Vardy was 5.5 million, and if you're a team with Erling Haaland in and need someone else just to pad your strikers out because you just need someone, that's not a bad shout. Jamie Vardy is a Premier League legend and is always good for a goal, right? He's always good for a goal,
Yeah.
maybe 60, 70 minutes. Otherwise, Leicester not for me. No one there. Southampton, I know they've got some very very budget defenders, but I'm never going to start a Southampton
Yep.
defender. Ipswich are the only really interesting ones for me. You've mentioned a
Sammy
striker they have,
Smodics. Sammy
Sammy
Smod.
Smodics, who's basically a midfielder on the game, but
Yep.
plays as a striker. He scored
Top
against
scorer in the
City.
champion. Yeah, scored against City's top scorer in the championship last season.
That is a very I love a misplaced position player. So that one, and of the three newbies, I think Ipswich could be the ones who don't get relegated. I'm
I,
afraid to say I don't have high hopes
yeah,
for Leicester or Southampton, and I
from what I've
fear
seen,
for.
yeah, from what I've seen of Ipswich, they're a grown-up version of Burnley. They play progressive football, but with a bit more sense. Will that be enough to save them from a relegation? I don't know. The only other player I'd consider for Ipswich is Amari Hutchinson, who's their main man. But yeah, it's been an interesting season so far, and we've got a weekend full of fixtures. Looking ahead at the fixtures, let's just whittle through them. So, Southampton, Man United, how are you feeling?
I'm hoping that Man U clean sheet there. I can't see Southampton's goals. That's where I worry about Southampton. So yeah,
Agree with
Man U
you.
clean sheet. That's
Agree
where
with
I'm
you.
going
Agree
there.
with you. Brighton, Ipswich.
Oh, I'm hoping for a haul there. Brighton at home. Oh, come on,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
Come on.
I'm willing to go -4 on that hole. So on
Fine.
Brighton, next we got Palace and Leicester.
Again, Leicester, I can't see really doing anything. They might get a goal. They might get a goal, but I feel like it's a Palace win. I'm an Eze owner, so that's a good one for Eze owners. Otherwise, maybe Muniz, maybe is Mateta back? I don't know. But
You're
I
hoping
feel
Eze does it for you. So Eze does it. Um, right next, Fulham, West Ham.
oh, ugh, that's an ugly fixture for me. I can see West Ham winning that game.
Yep,
I can see Fulham scoring, but I feel maybe it's like a 2-1 West Ham.
yep. Liverpool, Nottingham Forest. Is it a banana
Oh,
skin for Liverpool?
it's not. It's a Captain Salah game. That is Captain Salah game for me. My problem is Diego Jota. Is he going to score? Is it going to be Diaz? And actually, if you've got Liverpool defense, that's a fine one to get in for a Liverpool defender.
Right. Man City, Brentford. Are you going to do your wild card and get Erling Haaland in?
It makes all sense to, but I'm holding off yet again. I'm holding off because my front line of Havertz, Isak, and Jackson have got not bad fixtures this weekend. So yeah,
Yeah. I've got a horrible feeling another hat trick incoming, but we'll see
no.
about that. Villa, Everton.
I like Villa. Villa at home. Everton poor so far this season, but it's a complete one where you think, how the hell did Villa lose that? It's like one of
Yeah,
them, isn't
but
it?
this is one of those games where Sean Dyche might
Yeah,
have used the international break to tighten up,
to sort it
and
out.
Ollie Watkins continues with his shocking form. So
Possibly, possibly.
it could go that way. Bournemouth,
Yeah.
Chelsea.
Yeah. Ugh. I actually see. I bet you Bournemouth get something from that game.
Yeah,
I bet you Bournemouth get something from that game.
and I don't think Cole Palmer's going to do anything this game because he's like a home
He's a
home
homeboy.
performer. So next, North London derby,
Oh,
Spurs Arsenal. What's going to happen?
Arsenal are going to. This. So this game week for me, I've got an allegiance to Arsenal players. You would have thought, nah, don't go with Saka or Havertz, but I'm going with Saka and Havertz in my starting 11 this weekend. They're in my squad already, but I'm going to start them because big games require big players, and so I need them to turn up, please.
Yeah,
I'm going for an Arsenal win.
yeah, I mean, I've mentioned this before, but one of the obviously not having Haaland is not great. But if I was to do my team again, I would get players that you've got: Saka, Havertz, and Jackson. Those three would be straight in my team. So watch this space. Wolves, Newcastle.
I reckon. I reckon Newcastle win that game. I reckon Newcastle win that game, and then we're going to have question marks over. Isak and Gordon. How does everyone get them in again? I bet you that's what happens there. But Wolves at home, you know, I kind of I love Gary O'Neill. I like Cunha. I like Huang. They got Ait Nuri as a just random roving fullback. But I could maybe Newcastle might be too strong.
I'll tell you how we'll end, because at the start of the call you're talking about, oh, international break. It was good to take a break from the stresses and strains. Don't believe a word of it. But those last few minutes, I can see you salivating, right? You're just like, it's like you've got a lovely, buttermilk fried chicken burger in front of you, dipped in hot sauce. Your mouth is salivating. Yeah.
It's back. It's
Yeah.
back.
And we will be there. We will be there.